In New South Wales, a young international student vanished after a peaceful afternoon at Pitt Street Mall.
It was just after 10:30 this morning. Police were called to Snapper Point following reports a woman's body was found face down in a blowhole.
And just a few days later, her body was discovered at the Snapper Point blowhole, bearing severe injuries to her neck. The person responsible, someone who had once shared the same roof with her, ultimately paid the price with a 46-year prison sentence, bringing closure to one of the most shocking cases that shook Australia.
Her body was naked when it was found in the water, and all jewellery had been removed.
The central figure in this story is Michelle Leng, a 25-year-old international student from Chengdu, China, who lived in the suburb of Campsie in New South Wales. When she arrived in Australia in 2011, she adopted the English name Michelle, carrying with her the dream of building a bright future for herself and her beloved mother. As an only child, after her father passed away in 2008, Michelle's bond with her mother, Mrs. May, grew stronger than ever. Mrs. May described her daughter as gentle, kind-hearted, and always considerate of others' feelings, ready to lend a helping hand to friends, even when she was under pressure or feeling down herself. Michelle's decision to study abroad marked a major turning point in her life. Although Mrs. May worried about her daughter being far from home, she also felt immense pride in Michelle's determination and courage to step out of her comfort zone to grow and mature. She poured all her savings into helping her daughter pursue that dream, believing that Michelle would achieve all the wonderful things she deserved. In Australia, Michelle lived with her aunt, uncle, and cousin in Campsie, a peaceful residential area not far from downtown Sydney. As she gradually settled into life there, she began sending her savings back home to support her mother. After 5 years of studying and living in Australia, Michelle became an outstanding student, admired by both her classmates and professors. Upon graduating from the University of Technology, Sydney, UTS, with a bachelor's degree in business, she continued her education at the Sydney Institute of Interpreting and Translating, driven by her aspiration to become a professional interpreter. At that time, Michelle's life was filled with dreams, faith, and hope for a bright future in a foreign land. On April 21st, 2016, a warm Thursday afternoon in Sydney, Michelle Leng finished her class at the University of Technology, Sydney, and spent some time catching up with a few friends before leaving campus. As they said goodbye, she smiled, waved to them, and boarded her usual bus right outside the school gate, mentioning that she would stop by Pitt Street Mall to do a little shopping before heading home. Security camera footage from the city center showed Michelle wandering among the busy crowds, stopping by a few stores, and purchasing some small items. Later, she boarded a train at St. James Station shortly before 4 p.m. and was recorded getting off at Campsie Station around 4:30 p.m., just a few minutes' walk from the apartment where she lived. Throughout that afternoon, Michelle continued chatting with her friends through text messages as usual, sounding cheerful and showing no signs of anything unusual. However, by the end of the afternoon, all contact with her suddenly stopped. Her phone no longer responded, and her social media accounts, which she frequently updated, went completely silent. The next morning, when she failed to show up for class, her friends began to sense that something was terribly wrong. Although Michelle's sudden loss of contact deeply worried her friends and other students, in the first few days, no one imagined that the silence was a sign of a tragedy. Because Michelle was independent, often busy with school, and sometimes stayed late at the library or at a friend's place. People assumed she was simply unavailable for a while. However, when 4 days had passed since she was last seen at Pitt Street Mall, worry turned into fear. That afternoon, Michelle's aunt, the woman she was living with in Campsie, returned home from a weekend trip and found the apartment unusually empty. There was no indication that Michelle had come back. Her belongings were intact, and her phone along with her identification documents were still in her room. Overwhelmed by a sense of dread, she immediately went with her husband, Derek Barrett, to the Campsie police station to report the situation. According to friends and those who interacted with Michelle that day, there were no signs that she was in trouble or worried about anything. She was her usual self, gentle, cheerful, and friendly as always. Security camera footage from Pitt Street Mall showed Michelle wearing blue jeans, a light gray long-sleeved top, and carrying a distinctive red shoulder bag as she strolled calmly through the busy crowd. She stopped by a few shops, purchased a couple of small items, and no one appeared to be following or approaching her suspiciously. Her face in the video looked perfectly normal, focused, relaxed, and showing no trace of fear or unease. From everything recorded, it seemed Michelle was simply enjoying a peaceful afternoon of shopping like any other day, before she suddenly vanished without a trace, leaving everyone utterly unable to comprehend what could have happened next.
Michelle was seen in security video shopping at Myer in the Pitt Street Mall last Thursday at 3 p.m. She bought a juice before getting on a train at St James Station at 4:30 p.m. and getting off at Campsie. Close friends told police they hadn't had contact with her since late on Thursday night.
While Michelle's photo began spreading rapidly across social media and the Chinese community in Sydney grew increasingly anxious over her mysterious disappearance. More than 60 miles to the north, another piece of news was shaking the Central Coast region of New South Wales. At Snapper Point Blowhole, a location famous for its breathtaking scenery, but also notorious for its hidden dangers, rescue personnel had just received an emergency report. Snapper Point, situated within the Munmorah State Conservation Area, is known for its towering cliffs, strong winds, and coastal rocks that are often wet and slippery. Both locals and tourists are well aware that a single misstep there could lead to a serious accident, as the massive waves in the area can easily sweep anyone into the swirling waters below. A tourist walking along the rugged cliffs of Snapper Point suddenly noticed something unusual. Amid the dark blue water below, there appeared to be the shape of a person floating motionless. At first, they thought it might be someone swimming or in distress, but upon closer look, they realized the individual was face down and completely still. An emergency call was made immediately, and around 10:30 a.m., a rescue helicopter team was dispatched to the scene. Paramedics were lowered by cable to retrieve the woman from the water under harsh conditions of strong winds and powerful waves. When the body was brought to shore, responders quickly realized this was no ordinary accident. The victim was a young Asian woman whose body showed multiple severe wounds caused by a sharp object, with more than 30 injuries in total. The trauma to her neck was determined to be the primary cause of her passing. Evidence also indicated that the victim had tried to resist before being overpowered, leading investigators to believe she had endured an extremely violent incident before her body was discarded into the sea. The scene left everyone at the site in silence, as they understood they were facing one of the most heartbreaking cases ever to occur in the area. Police quickly sealed off the entire Snapper Point blowhole area and began investigating the scene under harsh weather conditions, with strong winds and powerful waves. After examining the terrain and initial evidence, investigators concluded that it was highly unlikely the victim's body had been carried there by the tide. Instead, it appeared to have been left directly at the blowhole site. The chief detective of the New South Wales Police stated that on that particular day, the sea was especially rough, making access to the area extremely dangerous. However, when the body was recovered from the water, there were no signs of impact injuries typically caused by being thrown against rocks, something that would have been evident if the victim had been swept in from elsewhere. Based on the state of the body and the natural conditions of the area, police operated under the assumption that the woman had entered the water right at the blowhole rather than having drifted from another location.
It was just after 10:30 this morning. Police were called to Snapper Point following reports a woman's body was found face down in a blowhole.
Post-mortem revealed that the woman had suffered a number of wounds, significantly some stab wounds. Our interpretation of the situation is that she suffered a violent assault prior to her death. The description of the woman, who at this point in time have not identified, is an Asian female aged between 20 and 35, medium build, shoulder length hair. She has no distinguishing tattoos or scars on her body. Her body was naked when it was found in the water, and all jewellery had been removed.
Anybody who knows this woman or knows anything about this crime is urged to contact police.
After completing the initial forensic procedures, but still unable to determine the victim's identity, the New South Wales Homicide Squad collaborated with facial identification experts to create a computer-generated image based on the woman's features. In the photo released to the public in hopes of receiving assistance from the community, the woman was described as a young Asian female with shoulder-length black hair, an average build, and a gentle face. Since her real identity had not yet been confirmed, police temporarily referred to her as Jane Doe, Snapper Point Blowhole, a name used in the investigation files to represent the unidentified woman who had just been found. When the image of Jane Doe Snapper Point aired on the evening news and quickly spread across social media, the Chinese community in Sydney was immediately stirred. Many noticed that the face in the computer-generated image bore a striking resemblance to Michelle Leng, the 25-year-old student who had gone missing just a few days earlier. The similarities in age, build, and hairstyle led people to wonder, could the young woman who mysteriously disappeared in Campsie and the woman found at Snapper Point be the same person? Shortly afterward, DNA testing conducted by the New South Wales Forensic Department confirmed everyone's worst fear. The victim was indeed Michelle Leng, the international student from China. The heartbreaking story of a girl who once carried so many dreams had now become the center of media attention across Australia. Just one day after the results were released, thanks to security camera footage and cell phone location data, police identified a suspect, someone very familiar to Michelle. Right after the victim's identity was confirmed, the New South Wales Homicide Squad rapidly expanded the investigation. Everyone in Michelle's household, including her aunt, uncle, cousin, and close friends, was brought in to provide information. The apartment in Campsie, where Michelle lived with her relatives, was thoroughly searched by police, who collected every trace of physical evidence, digital data, and footage from nearby security cameras. A major breakthrough came when investigators discovered that a traffic camera had captured a suspicious vehicle entering the Munmorah State Conservation Area, the location of the Snapper Point blowhole, approximately 4 hours before Michelle's body was found. License plate data quickly led them to the vehicle's owner, 27-year-old Derek Barrett, Michelle's uncle by marriage, who had been the one to report her missing alongside his wife just days earlier. Derek had previously worked in information technology, but had been unemployed for some time and was living with the family in Campsie. When police seized and examined his phone, they uncovered images that left the entire investigative team shaken. Stored within the device were photographs showing Michelle with her hands bound and her mouth covered with tape, lying on her own bed. Her face displayed clear signs of fear and distress, images so haunting that several investigators later admitted it was one of the most disturbing moments of their entire careers.
The mother of murdered student Michelle Leng has thanked police and the Australian Chinese community who have been helping her family through this terrible time. Mrs. Zhong says words can't describe the pain she feels over the loss of her only child. A fund has also been set up to help pay for Michelle's funeral and take care of her mother.
Derek Barrett was quickly arrested and brought before the Supreme Court of New South Wales to hear the initial charges. He was denied bail and remained silent throughout the first hearing, showing no emotion whatsoever. Just 2 months later, after police gathered additional digital evidence, witness statements, and location data, Derek officially faced a total of 27 serious criminal charges, including unlawful detention for personal gain, severe misconduct, and violation of personal freedom. By analyzing security camera footage, phone logs, and forensic findings, investigators were able to reconstruct the entire timeline of events. They believed Michelle had been overpowered by Derek almost immediately after she returned home on the afternoon of April 21st. During the period when the apartment was empty, she was held in her bedroom, where the horrifying events unfolded. According to the investigation team, the motive behind the crime stemmed from Derek's twisted obsession with Michelle. This act was not only a grave physical violation, but also the ultimate betrayal committed by someone who had once been considered family. During the investigation, police uncovered a chilling detail. At one point while Michelle was still alive, her cousin had returned home completely unaware that his cousin was being held just a few steps away, locked inside her bedroom. This revealed how meticulously Derek had planned and how skillfully he concealed his actions. To this day, investigators have not been able to determine exactly how long Michelle was held captive, only that everything occurred between 4:45 p.m. on Thursday, April 21st, and 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, April 24th, the time her body was discovered. Based on phone location data and surveillance footage, authorities determined that on the morning of April 24th, Derek wrapped Michelle's body in plastic wrap and drove away from the house. His route was traced all the way to the Snapper Point area within the Munmora State Conservation Area, where he stopped at a service station to buy a few snacks before continuing his journey. Upon arrival, Derek carried Michelle's body near the cliff's edge and disposed of her remains into the blowhole, the very spot where Michelle had once taken a joyful photo years earlier during a trip and shared it on Instagram with a cheerful caption. The fact that she was left at the very place she had once loved made the story even more haunting, a cruel paradox between happy memories and a tragic reality.
A man will face court today after he allegedly killed a Chinese student and dumped her body on the New South Wales Central Coast.
In late April 2016, Derek Barrett was formally charged with taking the life of Michelle Leng and brought to trial at the Supreme Court of New South Wales. During the first hearing, he pleaded not guilty, maintaining a silent expression and avoiding interaction with anyone around him. Meanwhile, Michelle's family, including her mother and several relatives from Chengdu, China, flew to Australia immediately upon receiving the heartbreaking news. Despite their overwhelming grief, They attended every court session, determined to witness the trial and hoping that justice would be served for their beloved daughter.
Michelle Leng's distraught mother, supported in court by the wife of the man accused of fatally stabbing her daughter. Michelle's mother left court, promising to speak publicly about her daughter tomorrow.
Just what kind of a person was she?
Good person, like an angel.
In China, her murder has made national headlines.
So lots of international students in Sydney and their parents in China, so they were really concerned with this news.
As those closest to her struggle to comprehend her violent death.
Derek Barrett's defense attorney told the court that his client was struggling during his time in custody, having difficulty adapting to prison life, and denied all allegations made by the prosecution. He claimed that Derek appeared sad, confused, and mentally distressed, and complained that the Sydney Detention Centre was a harsh and inadequate facility, expressing hope that his client would soon be transferred elsewhere. However, these arguments did not alter the outcome of the investigation. After 18 months in custody and facing overwhelming evidence, in December 2017, Derek finally pleaded guilty. He admitted to binding and gagging Michelle with tape, inflicting serious injuries that led to her passing, and later disposing of her body at Snapper Point in an attempt to conceal his wrongdoing. In addition, Derek also confessed to 21 other offenses, including 19 acts of illicit recording of the victim for immoral purposes, along with charges of unlawful detention for personal gain and 3 counts of misconduct toward a person over 16 years old. During the trial, Derek Barrett claimed that he had struggled with substance use issues and stated that around the time of the incident, he had taken synthetic stimulants. Derek insisted that he could not clearly remember what had happened during that fateful weekend, only vaguely recalling seeing his own reflection in the mirror and noticing a few suspicious marks near the sink. However, the Supreme Court judge of New South Wales rejected this testimony, ruling that the distress the defendant displayed appeared forced and insincere. A forensic psychologist, Dr. F., who was called as an expert witness, agreed that Derek showed signs of feigning memory loss to avoid criminal responsibility. He stated that the defendant's claim of being addicted to strong stimulants was unreliable, as medical and physical assessments did not support that assertion. "I have never seen a stimulant addict maintain that kind of physical condition," he told the court. According to the expert's assessment, Derek demonstrated a lack of empathy and awareness of the gravity of his actions. His decision to photograph the victim bound and gagged, to keep those images for his own distorted gratification, and then to dispose of the body in a remote area revealed behavior driven not by impulse but by moral deviance and pathological obsession. While awaiting sentencing, Derek Barrett wrote a handwritten letter to Mrs. May, Michelle's mother, expressing what he claimed to be belated remorse. In the letter, he wrote, "I can only imagine the pain you are going through after losing your only daughter. Every moment of my life. I wish I could turn back time to erase the day that caused so much suffering. I let my personal issues spiral out of control, and my family has paid an unbearable price since that day. I have not slept peacefully a single night. Tears and nightmares haunt me constantly. I lost everything because of one foolish moment. My memories of that time have become blurry, and what torments me most is that I cannot understand how I fell so far. I betrayed my own family and hers, and now I feel disgusted with myself." However, when the letter was presented in court, Judge Helen Wilson ruled that Derek's words were nothing more than an attempt to appear remorseful. She stated that his expressions of regret seemed insincere and calculated, intended only to make a favorable impression during sentencing rather than reflecting genuine repentance.
He had the air in the witness box of someone playing a part and saying what he thought he should say to present the best possible impression of himself.
When delivering the sentence, Judge Helen Wilson described the case as one of the most despicable and infuriating crimes she had ever encountered in her entire judicial career. She declared, "This was an act of extreme depravity and cruelty, showing profound malice and inhumanity. What makes this case even more heartbreaking is that the person responsible for the tragedy was someone the victim trusted, a family member who lived under the same roof and was supposed to be her protector."
A socially inadequate man driven by sexual perversion and sadism, Derek Barrett didn't fool anyone.
It's satisfying that we've got justice, but there's no joy in a matter like this. It's just an extremely sad case.
Very lucky he didn't get life imprisonment.
Derek Barrett stared intently at the floor of the dock throughout the entire sentence, his tears now only for himself. Because while this wasn't technically a life sentence, he could be in his 70s before he is free again.
After reviewing all the evidence, testimonies, and the severity of the offense, the Supreme Court of New South Wales sentenced Derek Barrett to 46 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 34 years. The sentence meant that he would have to remain incarcerated until at least the age of 70 before becoming eligible for parole consideration.
Look, first of all, if I could ask you to respect the privacy of the family. They're very upset and they'll be leaving shortly, but they don't want to say anything to the media at this point in time. I'd just like to say that the murder of Miss Leng was a horrendous, senseless murder that's impacted on a lot of people's lives. The courts have recognised the seriousness of the offence by the sentence that was handed down on Mr Barrett. Anyone that heard the facts of what's gone on, it was a horrendous matter, and the family are traumatised by what's gone on. That's all we've got to say. Thank you.
It seemed as though the case had finally come to a close after the sentence was handed down. But in reality, it continued to leave behind mysteries and haunting questions for years to come. While reviewing and monitoring records related to Derek Barrett, investigators noted that he had long shown signs of a distorted sexual obsession with Michelle. And what was later uncovered only confirmed the terrifying depth of that truth. In November 2019, 3 years after Derek's conviction, a strange incident occurred at a house in the suburbs of New South Wales. An elderly woman suffering from memory loss was sitting in her kitchen when her daughter came to visit. While tidying up, the daughter noticed her mother holding a waterproof industrial-style USB drive placed on the table. When asked about it, the woman said she thought it was just an old toy and couldn't remember how she had gotten it. Curious, the daughter plugged the USB into her computer to check and instantly froze in shock at what appeared on the screen. Inside the storage device were numerous files containing content so disturbing that she panicked and called the police immediately. When investigators analyzed the USB drive, they discovered 9 video files totaling more than an hour of footage and 13 still images, all linked to Derek Barrett and Michelle Leng. The content depicted Michelle being unlawfully confined in her own room, showing her bound and unable to defend herself. One of the videos left investigators deeply shaken. It showed Michelle's hands tied so tightly that they had become swollen and discolored due to restricted blood circulation. In another segment, Derek appeared on camera, using a large, sharp object to cut and rebind the tape while speaking in a chillingly calm voice. "Now, where are we?" before continuing his severe misconduct. Further analysis revealed that Derek had secretly recorded both Michelle and his own stepdaughter before the incident, capturing private moments such as bathing and sleeping. In several clips, he exhibited deviant behavior while observing them, exposing the extent of his obsession and psychological distortion. Police compared the recovered footage with data that had been deleted from Derek's phone days before his arrest, and confirmed that these were indeed the files he had deliberately erased to hide evidence. Strangely, the elderly woman who possessed the USB had no known connection to Derek, and to this day, it remains unclear how the device ended up in her home. However, since she lived only a few miles from where Derek had previously resided, investigators believe the USB may have been discarded or lost nearby before she accidentally found it. From the horrifying evidence extracted from the USB drive, New South Wales Police filed 17 additional charges against Derek Barrett, including multiple counts of serious assault and acts of moral misconduct. These materials expose the profound depravity of his actions, leading even veteran investigators to admit that this was one of the most disturbing cases they had ever handled. During the review, police also confirmed that Michelle's aunt, Derek's wife, frequently traveled for work to Wollongong, over an hour's drive from their home, meaning she was absent for much of the time during which her husband's crimes took place. When the truth came to light, she suffered a severe mental breakdown, tormented by guilt for not having been there to protect Michelle. For Mrs. May, Michelle's mother, the phone call informing her about the USB nearly made her collapse. Through tears, she said, "When the police told me the video showed my daughter enduring such cruel abuse and both physical and emotional torment, I went completely numb. The pain was beyond what any mother could bear." Not long after that, my own mother, Michelle's grandmother, passed away from heartbreak. In the end, Derek Barrett pleaded guilty to all 17 new charges, but to the deep disappointment of the victim's family, the court was unable to issue a separate sentence due to legal restrictions. Although the new evidence revealed a far greater degree of guilt, the law did not permit altering the original 2017 sentence, leaving Michelle's family to endure yet another wave of pain and the haunting sense that justice had not been fully served.
A man who admitted killing his own niece has been sentenced for a second time after a USB stick was unearthed years after he was jailed.
Judge went as far as saying if the full extent of his perverted crime was known in 2017, he would have been jailed for life. But that simply wasn't possible now.
The law doesn't allow one to revisit a sentence that was imposed in 2017.
Because the evidence from the USB was discovered after the original trial had concluded, the Supreme Court of New South Wales considered it an aggravating factor that reflected the extreme gravity and depraved nature of the crime. As a result, the court imposed an additional 20-year prison term on Derek Barrett. However, under legal provisions, this new sentence was ordered to run concurrently with the existing sentence for taking Michelle's life, meaning the total term of 46 years in prison remained unchanged. Even so, the minimum non-parole period was extended by 2 years, meaning Derek would not be eligible for parole consideration until 2052 instead of 2050. This ruling underscored the court's acknowledgement of the crime's unimaginable severity and affirmed that it stands as one of the most twisted and haunting cases in Australia's modern judicial history, a story of betrayal, cruelty, and the unending pain of those left behind. After the court's final ruling and justice was at least partially served, the pain remained, lingering in the hearts of Michelle's family, friends, and the international student community who once knew her. Though time passed, no one could forget the young woman who had carried so many hopes and dreams for the future. A few months after the sentencing, a solemn memorial ceremony was held in Sydney, the city where Michelle had studied and lived. Friends, neighbors, and many international students attended, bringing white flowers, candles, and handwritten cards to place around a photo of her gentle smile. They called Michelle the angel far from home, a young woman who left her homeland with courage and compassion, chasing a dream of a better life, only to leave this world too soon under heartbreaking circumstances. After the ceremony, Michelle's body was cremated in Sydney, and her ashes were returned to China according to the wishes of her mother, Mrs. Leng, so she could rest eternally in her homeland, the place that had nurtured her love, faith, and the pure dreams of her youth. And that is the heartbreaking story of Michelle Leng, a young woman full of dreams, kindness, and resilience, who believed in the goodness of life but faced a tragedy no one could have foreseen. This case not only shocked the entire nation of Australia, but also left a profound lesson for all of us. Sometimes, danger comes from the very place we believe to be the safest, and staying alert while trusting our instincts is absolutely vital. Michelle's story reminds us to cherish every moment with our loved ones and to never remain silent when we sense something is wrong around us. Thank you for staying until the end of today's story in True Crime Documentary. If you believe Michelle deserves to be remembered, please share this video, leave a comment in her memory, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue telling real stories, with respect for those victims who no longer have a voice. See you in the next episode of True Crime Documentary, where together we seek truth and share compassion.